Hey everyone, another Baseball America Facebook Live and podcast. Carlos Collazo, JJ Cooper here to talk a little draft. It's not that far away.
We are 12
really
days
soon.
away. 12 days from the draft.
Woo-hoo.
ACC tournaments going on in our backyard. Writing reports still. A lot of stuff going on with players. It's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. And what we wanted to do today, obviously we're going to take your questions, but the other thing that we wanted to do, we've talked a lot about the top of the draft. And we wanted to dive a little deeper because we're, if nothing, if not deeper on the draft. When we say we're working on reports, Carlos is writing in the 300s, I'm writing in the 400s, and we're going to have, before it's all said and done, we'll probably have 700, 800 reports for this draft. We'll have names of probably 11 to 1,200 guys.
We have more than that now.
Yeah, we have more. We'll call some out that are probably not going to get drafted. But we got state list coming next week. So as always, good reminder, it's a great time to subscribe to Baseball America. If you just go to baseballamerica.com, click at the top, you get your options. You can do the bundle, or you can do just the online. The online is as low as $5.50 a month, and you will be reading draft reports from now till the draft. You can really, if you want to be a true draftnik, dive in. We're not stopping after the first round. We're not stopping after the first day. We're not stopping after the second day. We want to give you reports for day 3 too, because sometimes those guys turn into things, and we want you to be able to at least know, okay, that's why that guy's being drafted.
Yeah, we have the top 200 reports already up on the website now. I think that's well over 40,000 words on players, so plenty to dig into if you're interested in doing that already, which you don't have much time left. So if you want to get to know this class, definitely jump over there. You can also get some interesting pieces on recent draft history of all the teams. I think we have 3 divisions rolled out right now, and those will continue to go out as we get closer and closer to the draft. But let's jump into it.
So jumping in, the first thing I do want to ask, Carlos, is we're not talking about the Casey Mizes of the world now.
There are a couple interesting guys who definitely have the potential to be day one guys and even first round guys.
But who are some guys that you're interested at least in? This doesn't even have to be a Carlos fave, but who are guys who you're really kind of bearing down on right now?
Well, I think the easiest or the most obvious place to start is with Virginia, just because both JJ and I were out at in Durham yesterday for the ACC tournament. We got to see Virginia.
ACC tournament with 1/5 the reign of the SEC tournament.
Yes, it was a very nice day. We got in a bunch of games, but 2 players on Virginia that are very interesting. Left-hander Daniel Lynch, who started, and then center fielder Jake McCarthy, who has been back for a few games now. And really, this is a huge week for him, considering how much of the season he's missed due to injury. But Lynch might even be the guy with more helium at this point, just because, and we saw it in person, his stuff is up. Previously, he was in the 89 to 92 mile per hour range with his fastball, and that's really what he's been like throughout his time at Virginia. Kind of halfway through the season, maybe 2/3 of the way through the season, his stuff really ticked up. And yesterday he was 92, 94 pretty regularly throughout his outing, touching 95 regularly as well. It was a slider-heavy diet from him, which I think it's interesting to see. He's got the stuff that's working that good, but he's definitely comfortable with his slider. But he's a college left-hander with pretty good performance. He was shaky at the beginning of the season, but he's really progressed both performance-wise and stuff-wise. He got hit around a little bit yesterday, but I think just that uptick is interesting to teams. And with the number of college left-handers and just left-handers in general, he's a guy who could definitely bump up when draft day comes around.
The thing that stood out to me from McCarthy is kind of what you would expect. He's missed a pretty significant amount of time. And now, congratulations, what you get to do is you get to try to step right back in against everyone else who is at the peak of their powers for the season because they've been working to this point. That first at-bat he had yesterday.
I'd say even his first 2 or 3.
It really, his timing's just off.
He looked a little stiff in the box.
Indecisive. He pulled the trigger on 2 swings in that first at-bat as the ball was almost crossing the plate. Yeah. And it's just something where, he did get a single later on. But
yeah, his one single came on, I think it was like a 78 mile per hour breaking ball. He really did a nice job keeping his hands back and driving a low line drive into left center field the other way. So that was a good look for him. But in general, he didn't look like he was in great sync. His third AB, he actually dropped a bunt down and tried to just get something started with his speed, which his speed's still there. That hasn't gone anywhere. He's still a fast guy. But it'll be interesting to see how kind of that looseness comes back to his swing.
I think the big thing that we talked about, though, is that he has enough of a track record. Everyone understands. That's not something where scouts saw Jake McCarthy yesterday and said, write him off. He doesn't look bad at the plate. Yeah. They understand why. They understand the reasoning why, they may not see good Jake McCarthy really before the draft. It's possible because he's coming off of a long layoff.
Exactly. Yeah, and the thing with him, his track record, it's really hard to understate how good he's been. His freshman year, he hit 368. His sophomore year, he hit 338. He went in the Cape and he hit well there, 387, 441, 613. Those kind of like power numbers with a wood bat. Very impressive for a guy who's playing center field, is a plus runner, an above average defender. We've talked about it before with McCarthy, but he's a guy who's still, even if he doesn't perform fantastic,
the tools are still the tools.
The tools are still there. He profiles well. The history, everything there is really impressive with him. But he could make himself some money this next week if he performs. So.
But I'm speaking of guys who've made themselves some money. I'm going to go a little deeper.
Yeah, let's do it.
Brent Spillane at Illinois.
This is your dude now.
He fascinates me. He really does. And why he fascinates me is because Brent Spillane's having a monster season. And if you dig a little deeper, it's like, okay, so did he come out of nowhere here? Well, not entirely. What it was is that this is the first fully healthy season he's had at Illinois. 3 years. First year was really kind of ruined by concussions. Second year, he basically got a productive half season. This year he's been healthy, and he's gone out and just mashed 22 home runs last I checked. The power is absolutely legit. There is too much swing and miss that comes with it. There's no doubt about that. But you do not throw away, the power is, because the power is exceptional. It's oppo power. He can drive the ball to all fields. And there's enough with that where you go, okay, maybe in pro ball he can trade a little bit of this for that. And so shorten the swing a little bit. He'll still, he won't hit the ball 450 feet. He'll hit it 410. That's still, that makes sense. But the other part of it is that a lot of these times these sluggers, we're talking about guys you say, okay, he really has no position. He can't run. It's all based on the bat. Well, Brent Spillane's an above-average runner.
Yeah, this was the most surprising thing to me when talking with scouts about kind of his supplemental tools. He's a much better runner than I would have expected given his profile where he's been playing. He's got a pretty good arm. I think he profiles pretty well.
I think he's back in the outfield.
Exactly,
he plays first base for Illinois, but I think if you want him in the outfield, you can do that.
I think there are some teams that really like him there as well.
And so you say that and you go, okay. Now, again, we're not talking about first round. We're talking about – but a month and a half ago, I'd have said fifth, sixth round, and now I'm saying, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him move up into third or fourth round because you're talking about a guy who you do not throw away the track record. And that leads into a question because speaking of guys who have power, Jack Cecil asks, how much would your evaluation of Luken Baker change if he had a clean bill of health in his college career? Which is,
tremendously.
For those of you who do not know the Luken Baker story, two-way guy shows up in college, and for his freshman year, you're seeing big-time power at the plate, and you're seeing big-time power on the mound. He could do both. First injury arrives, he basically has to kind of give up pitching. Now he's a first baseman who hits for power. So, okay. He's got 70, maybe 80 raw. Last year, he has kind of a freak injury, misses significant time. This year, he comes back, and he has a series of minor freak injuries, takes a ball off the bat hop, hits him in the eye, misses some time. Last year, there was a collision at one point, if I remember right. This year, then, he suffers another significant injury. None of these are like, he's got a chronic knee problem.
It's not to the point where you think that, though, because he's injured so much, but you look into them and they're all these
they're all fluke
accidents.
They're all freak. They're all
He's
fluke.
had the worst luck maybe of anyone in this class, but when he's on the field, he's always produced. He's hit over 300 every year. He's had a slugging percentage over 520 every year. He walks. He's walked at a 16% rate or higher pretty much every year with Texas Christian. I mean, he's got – anytime he's on the field, he's produced. And he doesn't have the best profile in the world, and we've talked about that before.
Right, he's a first base
but it stacks up with anyone. The power and the production he's had is very impressive.
But the problem is that you also, on the flip side, no one has ever gotten to see him. His career high in home runs in college is 11 because he's not had full seasons.
He's played 145 games.
So you don't say, that does not, it dings his draft stock is what it does. Now, you're not going to be able to bring him to a showcase, or a workout for a team and see him put on a show in your park. There's things you're not going to be able to do. He's still going to go well, but it is something where when you say how would it change your evaluation, he would probably be going higher if you had healthy Luken Baker, and especially because you have injury after injury after injury.
Okay. We've got another one. Benjamin Chase asks, Tristan Beck seems to be slipping in the mocks. Where could you see him dropping? Is the second round his floor, or could he fall further? Tristan Beck is interesting in kind of a similar way to Luken Baker, maybe not the same extent, but I think the thing that will hold him back is his injury history. He missed the entire season last year with a back injury, and he's been healthy this year, to give him credit. He's made every one of his starts. I think teams were very excited with him early on because his stuff was back. He had 4 above average or plus pitches. The stuff has definitely tailed off as the season has progressed, and I talked to some scouts recently who maybe chalk that up to him just not having the conditioning he would have had with the amount of time he's missed. I think he could still slip into the back end of the first round, but there's also a chance that his teammate Chris Bubich goes ahead of him just because he's a left-hander with performance. He doesn't have maybe the ceiling of Tristan Beck because his pitches aren't as sharp. He doesn't have the stuff, but his performance has been very steady. He's a big left-hander, and he doesn't have the health questions. So I'd say second round is pretty safe for Beck.
I was going to say, I think that's the floor.
If he fell too much further, I would be surprised.
The floor for productive college pitchers who have a track record and who have legit stuff, that's kind of about the floor that you're going to talk about for a guy like that. I don't see – it's really hard for me to see him falling further than that.
Yeah, definitely.
But second round wouldn't shock me if it ended up happening.
For sure.
So John Erkla asks, do teams factor in the league-wide trend of starting pitchers throwing less innings than ever at the MLB level when deciding between a pitcher and position player? Is there more value in a hitter? And I'm going to say no on that because you still have to you still have to get to 9 innings. And if you don't have pitching for those 9 innings, it doesn't. Yes, players are used differently now. I would tweak that though, and I would I want to hear what you think about this. The tweak I would say is the success of what guys like Josh Hader are doing, and what Andrew Miller's done, and there's a number of these guys. What they have done, I do think means that when you talk about a guy who has exceptional stuff, but maybe the body or the delivery isn't conducive to saying, I don't think that guy can hold up for 8 innings, 7 innings. That's less important now. I think it actually increases the value of some of those guys in the draft because I bring them up every time. JT Ginn.
Yeah.
JT Ginn
he's the first one that I thought of as well. And I think part of that is because he was used as a reliever with his high school. He's relieved before, so
state high school saves record, much to some scouts' dismay, because he was doing that this year.
That is probably an understatement.
That much to the scouts' disgust, I think would almost be the. But the idea is but Ginn's a smaller guy, and if this was 20 years ago, that would really ding him. Now, success of guys like Sonny Gray gives some hope for that. Marcus Stroman is way little smaller than JT Ginn. But go on top of that, if JT Ginn ends up being a power reliever who can give you 2 innings at a time, there's a value in that we really didn't see 10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if that changes how the scouts go about evaluating these guys, because obviously if you have a player who has the stuff and can show you that durability to go deep into games on a regular basis, that's exciting. You want your pitchers to be able to throw stuff and to be able to throw as long as possible. Obviously, the guys who do that now, it's a commodity. It's not really a regular thing you see. So I think that's obviously still very valuable. But once you get guys into player development, teams will figure out the best way to use them and to get the most value out of them.
Okay, next question.
There's also some guys we can jump into if you want.
Yeah, let's jump into one. Give me another guy that you're
another guy. We can stick with the Stanford trend because Niko Horner is a guy who we talk about a little bit, but I think Tristan Beck and Chris Bubich maybe overshadow him a bit. Niko is a guy who actually moved up in our latest update to the BA 500 a little bit. We had some good scout calls over there on Niko, but he's a guy who we talk about the college hitters who rise up on boards. Niko has performed every single year he's been at Stanford and in the Northwoods League and in the Cape Cod League. I've got really good feedback recently about his ability to stick at shortstop, and if he can stick at shortstop, that's a game changer. The early feedback we got from him is that he's likely to move to second, and I feel like depending on what team you're talking to, that still could easily be the case.
I mean, To give an example on that, if you're the Cardinals who are happy with Paul DeYoung at shortstop, love Paul, great year, great career so far. But Paul DeYoung, there are teams for whom Paul DeYoung would never be a shortstop.
Yeah.
And then there are other teams who would say, no, it's got to be at least a 60. The Mets have played Wilmer Flores at shortstop. Niko Horner is probably a better shortstop than Wilmer Flores. So, but that's I think it very much is the team that's drafting will determine whether it has to move.
For sure, but this year specifically, he's hit over 300 every year, like I mentioned. He's hit in the Wood Bat League, but this year he's hitting 342, 392, 495, 2 home runs, 15 doubles, 5 triples, almost as many walks as strikeouts. If you look at his overall portfolio of performance throughout his college career, it's very impressive. He's a guy I think that has some strength. His exit velos are very impressive. I saw him against UCLA this year. He hit a couple long balls to the wall, so he doesn't have a ton of homers to his name, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's a guy that gets into pro ball and starts getting more as he continues to develop. And if he stays at shortstop, that's a very valuable player. So keep an eye on him.
And again, in a year that does not have,
your standout college shortstops, you look at guys like Jeremy Ironman, who has his own defensive questions, although I think he has a chance to stick there. Caden Grenier, who's definitely going to be a shortstop, maybe a little light on the bat.
Bat is the question.
Jeremy Pena, a guy in the Northeast, another kind of similar to Grenier, very premium defender with the actions to stick there and a light bat.
It's not a great year for college shortstops. And
if you believe Niko Horner can stick there, that might be the best kind of all-around package, as well as having that kind of track record of hitting and hitting with wood bat. I think another thing to point out with him is in the Cape last summer, he actually hit 6 homers, and I believe it was 40 games. That's more home runs than he's ever had with aluminum in college. Kind of interesting. You don't really see that happen a lot, but
it does happen occasionally.
A swing that's geared for wood bats. Who knows? But that's exciting for teams that are projecting on him.
Another question
I wanted to mention.
We got a question from Lenny Torres Sr. asking about Lenny Torres Jr. What is he? So basically, just Lenny is one of the guys who the cold weather in the north does not, has not helped.
No, it's been tough. It's been very tough for scouts to see those guys regularly. Obviously, they're starting a little bit later than guys in Florida, Texas, Southern California. We talk about that.
I was just writing up John Malcolm, and John Malcolm's had a solid, good year in Michigan, but I do think the snow, the late snow, the late start was, much more than even a guy like Torres, because the guys who are more kind of slotting that next tier really have it tough, because it's going to be harder to get cross-checkers in.
For sure. And Torres is a guy who, while it is tough, he's been seen by all the right people this spring.
Because, they're going to make the time.
He's one of the youngest players in the class. He has some of the best raw stuff of any of these young prep pitchers and even some of the college pitchers. He's got a fastball that's been up to 97, 98 at times this spring. He's got a potential plus breaking ball in his back pocket. He's also got less experience on the mound than some of these other players, so he's got a lot of upside going for him. Once you continue to get those innings under his belt, I think a lot of teams can get really excited about what they have. It wouldn't surprise me if he slid into maybe the supplemental round after the first to a team that has multiple picks. Seems like second round would be very safe to take him in. But I think that's a safe range for him right now, maybe even middle of the first round if you really like him, because the youth is hard to overstate. He's legitimately one of the youngest players in the entire class, so that kind of stuff from him is very impressive. And he showed it over the summer as well.
And age is something that does, that is important, because on the flip side, Cody Clemens, to give an example of how age affects, I'll bring up another guy who's had an interesting year.
Yeah.
He's had a great year. He's pretty much had as good a year as almost anybody in college baseball. Clemens is mashing this year, and he's, after having an injury where basically he had to essentially DH for a year, he's back at second base, he looked okay there, all that. But at the same time, he's also about 2 years older.
He's very old for the class.
Than many of the contemporaries of him who are draft eligible, like who are the college draft eligible guys. Well, that does play a factor, because if you have a young guy, you're saying, okay, well, he's going to be a year ahead. When you send Clemens out, he's going to start out probably a year behind as far as, okay, he's going to be playing against guys who are his age or older, or younger, and so he's going to have to move pretty fast because of that, which the concern is that evaluators will look at that and say, how much of this is that he's more mature than the guys he's facing? So it's one of those things that does jump into discussions.
Yeah, we thought about moving him up before, and we talked to some scouts, and they seemed to say that he was slotted in the right spot for us. And part of it is that age. He's just such an old guy; it's hard to project a ton more on him.
Can I do one of my other faves?
Yeah, Logan, let's do it.
Joey Murray.
Yeah,
Kent State. Again, this is diving. This is for you of those who are watching the Facebook Live or the podcast. Mm-hmm. This is not a first-round guy.
No.
But this is a fascinating guy. This is what we love. We love diving much deeper than just the first round. Joey Murray has dominated this year. Mm-hmm. And normally when you say that, you see his strikeout rate and all, and you go, okay, so it's either an exceptional, like it's 95 plus, I'm assuming, or he throws a screwball, or he's got this changeup that no one can do anything with. No, he's going out there and he's saying, I'm going to throw you a fastball. It's going to be 89, 90, maybe a 91. Mm-hmm. And guys are just going to swing and miss.
It's amazing how this fastball plays up. You can touch on more about how scouts think it plays up, or if it's just a spin rate thing, but just the coaches that we've heard from that say, yeah, his fastball played better than Shane McClanahan's fastball. Shane McClanahan has the best fastball in the class if you're talking about pure velocity. The fact that he went through a lineup more effectively than McClanahan did is very impressive, whether it's a deception, spin rate.
125 Ks in 85 innings, and again, he's doing that with a fastball that purely on velocity you would grade out as a below-average fastball. Mm-hmm. Now, you throw
That's why it's tough to just throw grades on fastballs just based on – because pitches don't often play like that. I'm sure
I've had discussions with this with scouts, and one of the things is Zack Lowther from Xavier. Mm-hmm. Speaking of, let's dive into this area. But Zack Lowther he was a lefty. You always prefer them when it's the lefty who's doing this, but he had kind of that same deception. Go back, Yusmeiro Petit had that. You could say Marco Estrada to an extent. The thing that does jump out is guys who do that. They often maintain that deception. Mm-hmm. Now, there may be a limit, but it is something where there is reason to believe that mm-hmm. will continue in pro ball, not just throw it away because he's doing it against
Exactly, yeah. Last year he had a 1.8 ERA with 110 strikeouts to 32 walks, and this season through 13 starts, is a 1.37 with, like you said, 125 strikeouts and 28 walks. Very impressive numbers and a very impressive fastball despite the velocity.
Kevin Shannon asked, we're going to wrap it up with this one. Sorry, Ron. I would just say JoJo Gray, great season as we keep talking about.
Joe Gray. Also a great season. Both the Gray boys are having fantastic years.
And both could go by JoJo to an extent, too. Exactly. So it gets a look. But the D2, Lemoyne's
D2
JoJo.
Pitcher.
Yeah, D2 pitcher has been really good. Kevin Shannon, though, asked, Jonathan Indias Jr. is so much better than his sophomore year. Is his current OPS 1.279? I'm trusting your numbers there, Kevin. Or last year's 783, closer to his true talent?
Yeah, I think he's got the OPS right. This is actually an interesting question because...
This year is uncharacteristically better mm-hmm. than anything he's ever done.
Exactly, yeah, and I think a lot of that has to come from just his swing change.
But that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I mean, he's got the talent obviously to put up these numbers. He's doing it against the best competition you're going to find in college baseball.
And guys liked him as a player when he was in high school too.
Scouts have always liked his talent. Thought he was a really, really good player. I think you could even argue that maybe I would say if I had to pick one. 2018 is his true talent, or 2016-17, I would say 2018, because to some extent, scouts have been a little disappointed with what he had done at Florida beforehand. They were kind of waiting on him to break out. I think they always thought the tools were maybe even better than the performance, whereas now you can have the argument that that's the opposite. But I'll go with 2018.
I'll do the easy answer, which is it's somewhere in between.
Yeah, probably that's the truth.
But to give an example, okay, of another guy, Kevin Biggio. 2 years ago, we were talking about Kevin Biggio in the draft. Notre Dame, drew a lot of walks, never hit for power. Well, Kevin Biggio, at the time, since we're on video, I can show this, hands up here, long way to go, not much power in the swing. Mm-hmm. He was occasionally run into one. Biggio now, hands are much
doing
lower.
Pretty well now, huh?
He gets the ball in the air more, and his fly ball rate's up significantly. He has 12 homers this year. Well, when you say was that old his true talent or is now his true talent, and the answer is his guys change, and hitters change more now than they did 15 years ago. When I started at Baseball America, hitters were generally what they were, was kind of what they would stay, And now guys, hitting development is catching up to pitching development. Pitching development has always been a guy adds a new pitch, a guy does a new workout program, he gains some velo. There are a lot of ways that a pitcher could from one year to another be an entirely different pitcher. We're seeing hitters now who from one year or another. Chris Taylor is a different hitter than the guy that we saw when he was coming into the draft. Justin Turner. No one in baseball except for maybe Justin Turner thought when Justin Turner was coming into the draft or was in the minor leagues that this was what Justin Turner was going to be. Those things but these guys just get better.
Yeah.
Jonathan India, one of the things is he's gotten better.
Yeah, and I think especially when you're talking about guys in high school and college, you're developing physically you're changing so much just physically without even getting into mechanics or skill or what your approach is at the plate. These players change all the time. It's a fluid process. That's why we try and stay on top of it as much as we possibly can. But these guys are going to change once they get into pro ball as well. So that's why we follow them from high school to college to the minors to the pros.
And that's why if you go to baseballamerica.com, you look at these guys, you're going to be able to read reports from when they were an amateur and then when they signed and then the next year. We're seeing like when Willy Adames came up yesterday. We're not doing the new what to expect with Willy Adames. And one of the things we've realized is we don't really need to do that. If you're a Baseball America subscriber, there are 9 scouting reports on there for you to read. If you want to read through Willy Adames' complete progression through the minor leagues, you have it all there. Just go to Willy Adames' player card, and you can read all those reports. You can look at Juan Soto just made the big leagues. With Juan Soto, you can go back and you can read Ben's report on him before he ever signed, and here's what we think he is. And then you can read him as the number 2 prospect or 3 prospect in the Gulf Coast League. And then you can read about that he was the number 3 prospect in the national system just off of complex ball. And then you can read about him, he didn't qualify for the Saturday list last year because of at-bats, if I remember right. But you can read about him being the number 2 or 3 prospect in the national system. Number 2 coming into this system. Yep. And so you're getting these multiple reports over the years. So if you want to have fun, go back and look at Dylan Betances, who we wrote about forever before he made the big leagues, and you can kind of read through a guy's development.
It's very useful just to kind of see how these players change and even kind of putting guys in the 2018 class in perspective and in context with some of these other players, just kind of seeing that development and how players just change. I think it's useful to know. It's fun to know. It's awesome that we have that kind of information on players dating back to how long you've been here.
And we're going to 16 years.
And more than that.
I was going to say the digital version. Yes. The digital age started in 99 at Baseball America. And we're going back and adding stuff before that. But we're also going to make even the player cards even better coming forward. Thanks to some good work from our interns. So a lot of fun stuff.
Fantastic stuff there. Videos, anything you want, you can have.
So baseballamerica.com. Right at the top, you can click on Join Us Now. We appreciate all of you who already have. We've been getting some great response on that, as we lead into the draft. So thank you all. I know I don't always say it. That's you all who subscribe allow us to do what we do.
Yes.
So we thank you for that.
We appreciate it.
And by you all doing that, it allows us to continue to do this.
And to do more.
And yeah, exactly. I mean, we promise we'll work really long hours. Trust us. That's what we do. But we can't do that without subscribers. So we do thank you. We thank you for that. For Carlos, I'm JJ. So long, everybody.